New atheists, including scientists like Richard Dawkins and intellectuals like Sam Harris, argue that faith is illogical, immoral, and destructive. But they don't stop there. They advocate that a view that organized religion should be countered, criticized, and exposed by rational argument. So where does that leave all those people who do believe in God? Well, my next guest couldn't find a book that took on these new atheists, so he decided to write one himself. Joining me now is the author of that book, Shay. It's called In Good Faith, Questioning Religion and Atheism. Scott, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Now, I may have mentioned this when I was explaining the book, but I wonder, what has been the inspiration for this? What really brought you to go through this?
Well, as you said, I read Dawkins, Hitchens, Harris, Dennett, the whole Michael Shermer, the whole group. And then I searched for an answer because I am a believer, and I do think that it's rational to believe in God. With all we know about science, with all we know about the historicity of the Bible, and even our modern morality. And I didn't find a book where anyone had stood up and made that argument. And so my belief is that if you're at the intersection of something that needs to be done and what you can do, you try to do it. And that's what I did. And that's why I devoted basically every free discretionary moment that I had for 5 years, researching, writing, and then trying to make it a very accessible book.
Excellent. Now, speaking on that intersection, you went through 3 different faiths. Christianity, Judaism, Muslims. You went through all 3 of those to really come to this conclusion. Why do you think that was important to examine all 3 of those faiths?
Because I think at the core, and this is what worries me and actually also inspired me to write this book, at the core, the Bible came to overturn idolatry. So we thought, those of us who observe Passover, we celebrate overturning Pharaoh 3,800 years ago. But the sad truth is that the 20th century was a catalog of God-king pharaohs like Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, the Kim family, the Assad family, who basically used the same tropes of pageantry and poem, of course backed up by very strong armies and secret police and informers as well, to do the same thing that the ancient idolaters have done. And so I'm very worried about our global society that seems so susceptible to idolatry and to deifying these morally evil people. And that's what I tried to open up, because I think that's the central message of the Bible.
Now, what is something new from your book that many readers have walked away with shocked?
They're shocked at my definition of idolatry, because I define idolatry as not just merely bowing down to statues, which we sort of have this misconception, but idolatry is a set of lies about power. It's about ascribing super authority or superpower to finite beings, people like us, natural processes or ideologies. And it happens on a big level, like I spoke about with the dictators, the rogue dictators of the 20th century, but it happens on a small scale. How did Charlie Rose, how did Harvey Weinstein get away with what they got away with? They became idols. They became figures of super authority that couldn't be questioned, just like you couldn't question Pharaoh or Stalin, on a small basis, of course. But once you become an idol, people think you can't be toppled, and people buy into that. So that same story of super authority and superpower plagues us today.
That's incredible. And I think what's interesting about this book that you're mentioning is that it's just timeless. It comes time and time again. Especially today, there's new data that there are less and less people kind of going into a specific religious affiliation. Yes. Does your book touch on that?
So I don't describe that centrally